Okay, what we're going to do today is talk about the new domain feature in KeySecure 1.9. This is what we're referring to as enterprise domain support. A domain is effectively an isolated bucket of resources. Every system is going to ship with a root domain, and within that root domain we can then create subdomains. And within those subdomains, we can create more subdomains. Why we're calling it the enterprise model is in this particular model, it's the root zone that has a local user store, and you can bound or bind LDAP connections to that root zone. And then when we create domains, we can assign users to be members of those domains. So let me walk through it. So over here on the left, you see I have domains listed under keys and access management. First up, I'm going to create a user. Oh, I have a user called James already. So I'm going to come into domains. I'm going to add a domain. Let's give it a domain name. Let's call it James Enterprise. And now we need to list one or more administrators who will be the initial administrators of this domain. Once the domain's created, it's only those administrators within that domain who can manipulate the users. So I'm going to add James as an administrator, and I'm going to also add the admin as well. Okay. This next field, parent CA, that's the certificate authority. Each domain is initialized with a local certificate authority, and just like it is in the root. And that's very useful for when we're doing creating registration tokens and clients. Those certificates will be issued and they will be signed by that domain's default local CA. So here we can select which parent CA we want to sign the local CA. You can leave it blank. It'll pick the default local CA. So let's go ahead and create it. So we now have the James Enterprise domain. So I'm going to, now that I've just added who I'm logged in as, the admin, to this domain, he is now able to switch into that domain. So that's important. When we, let me log out here. When we log in, we log directly into the root domain. We then can switch domains. So here we are in the root domain. You see it listed up here as a root. You see we have no keys. So I'm going to switch domains to James Enterprise. And we're now in there. And if you have a look at our list of users, there's only the admin and James. And the keys, there are no keys. I'm going to create a new key now. Okay, so that key now exists in the James Enterprise domain. I'm going to switch domains back to the root, and you'll see there are no keys there. So these resources are not shared. Create a root key, just to make sure we don't see that in the James domain. We'll switch back, and you can only see the James domain. So I'd like to talk about users. So The subdomains effectively have a special connection to the root, and that is where we can assign users from into our domain. So you see here it says assign user. If I was in the root, that would be create user or add user. So I'm going to click assign, and now I get a list of all the users that are in the root zone. I have an LDAP user here for I. I'm going to assign for I to our domain. Okay, so he's now in the domain, and he'd be able to log in as well. I'll show you here the certificate authority. We've created this local certificate authority down here, and also automatically created an external certificate authority that contains the parent CA's certificate. Client registration is supported in subdomains. So when a client uses a registration token to register, it will automatically be issued a certificate for the subdomain. You cannot have a clients do not support switching domains. They authenticate into a domain and that's it. I won't walk through that today. There are certain things that are not available in domains. Those are things like that are very appliance specific. So you can see we've got some things here, but if I was to switch to the root, I've now got much more information. I can manage the cluster. I can manage the interfaces such as KMIP, NAE, HSMs, etc. Domain administrator, subdomains cannot do that. Backups and identity providers can only be done in the root. And that is the introduction to subdomains.